Thanks, students. I hope you all have seen part 1 of chapter 7 packing. See, in this chapter, what we saw, we read about that the writer he was fond of packing things and he packs all his things, and again he has to unpack things because of he forgot to pack his toothbrush, so in search of spectacles or his friend's boots, and finally he packs his bag and he gets tired, and at the end what his friend says that now they will pack the hamper bag. Now let us begin. Move ahead. They began in a light-hearted spirit, means to be cheerful, evidently intending to show me how to do it. I made no comments. I only waited, with the exception of George. Exceptions means a person or a thing that does not follow the general rule. And Harris is the worst packer in the world. And I looked at the piles of plates and cups and kettles and bottles and jars and pies and stoves and cakes and tomatoes, etc. They felt that the things would soon become exciting. See, the George and Harris, they started packing the hampers in the happy mood, and they wanted to show the writer that they could pack well. So the writer was waited for them to create a mess because he considered that Harris to be the worst packer in the world. So he looked at the piles of plates, cups, kettles and bottles, jars, pies, cakes and tomatoes which had to be packed into the hampers, and he thought as the boys would mess up, it would be an interesting thing to watch. I did. They started with breaking a cup. That was the first thing they did. They did that just to show you what they could do and to get you interested. See, the scene became interesting as they broke a cup as a starter in the starting, and what the writer says that they broke the cup to indicate that they could do that to make things interesting. Then Harris packed the strawberry jam on top of the tomato and squashed it, means what, to crush or squeeze something with force. And they had to pick out the tomato with a teaspoon. See what Harris did. He placed a jar of strawberry jam on the top of the tomatoes. So what happened? The tomatoes, they were squeezed by the jar, and then they removed the damaged tomato with the help of spoon. And then it was George's turn, and he trod, means he stepped on the butter. I didn't say anything, but I came over and sat on the edge of the table and watched them. It irritated them more than anything I could have said. I felt that it made them nervous and excited, and they stepped on things and put things behind them, and then couldn't find them when they wanted them. And they packed the pies at the bottom and put heavy things on the top and smashed the pies in it. See what happened? The George, he stepped on the butter, and the writer remained silent, but he sat on the edge of the table. He was watching all this thing, and his silence irritated his friend. They became nervous and they stepped on the things. They kept the things behind them and later, and when they wanted them, they couldn't find them out. And so they placed the pies on the bottom and they kept the heavier things on them. And what happened with this? All these pies were smashed. They upset salt over everything, and as for the butter, I never saw two men do more with 1 and 2 pence worth of butter in my whole life than they did. After George had got it off a sleeper, and they tried to put it in the kettle. It wouldn't go in. See, upset means overturned. And what was it wouldn't come out. They didn't scrap it, means they drag or pull it out of at last and put it down on a chair, and Harry sat on it and it stuck to him, and they went looking for it all over the room. See what happened? The boys, they overturned the can of salt on everything. So the writer says that they created a lot of confusion with a small piece of butter, and he had not seen anyone create such a mess with butter that was worth 1 and 2 pence, meaning it was a very small piece. As they did, George removed it from sleeper and tried to put it into the kettle. As he was unable to do that, he placed it on a chair. Harris sat on it, and what happened? The butter stuck to him, and he stood up. And both the boys they went around the room for looking for the piece of butter. I'll take my oath. I put means to oath means to swear upon. I put it down on that chair, said George, staring at the empty seat. I saw you do it myself not a minute ago, said Harris. See, George looked intently at the empty seat and on which he had placed the butter a few minutes ago, and he took an oath of truthfulness that he had placed it, that he has kept it not even a minute ago only. Then they started round the room again and looking for it. And then they met again in a center and they stared at one another. See, again they were searching in the room, whole room, and they met in the middle of the room and the empty handed. Most extraordinary things I ever heard of, said George. So mysterious, said Harris. Then George got round at the back and Harris and saw it. Why, here it is all the time, he exclaimed indignantly. Means what? In a manner that indicate anger. See what the George says that the disappearance of the butter was the most amazing thing, and that had known. Harry said that disappearance of butter was mystery. George saw the butter sticking to Harry's back and said that it had been there all this while. Where? Cried Harry, spinning around. Stand still, can't you? Roared George, flying after him. And they got it off and packed it in the teapot. See, Harry turned around and he asked where it was, where is the butter? So George fell to Harry's back and he asked him to stand still. And they removed the butter and they packed it inside the teapot. See, now Montmorency was in it all, of course. Montmorency's ambition in life is to get in the way and to scrounge at. Scroungement gets scolded. It if he can scrum means to wriggle in anywhere where he particularly is not wanted, and be a perfect nuisance means cause of inconvenience and make people mad and have things thrown at his head, and then he feels his day has not been wasted. See what over here the writer says that is a pet dog. Montmorency's participate in all the things, all this way. His aim was what was to interrupt everyone and then get scolded for it. So writer says he adds that if the dog was unable to twist into a place and create nuisance by angering people and get things thrown at him in return, so he felt that he had utilized the day in a good way. To get somebody to stumble over means to trip over a hurdle and curse him steadily for an hour, means scold him in his highest aim and object. And when he has succeeded in accomplishing this, his conceit means his over here his pride in himself becomes quite unbearable. See what he has said that the dog's aim was to get people trip over him and scold him. By doing this, he felt that he had fulfilled his aim and would feel proud of his achievement. He came and sat down on things just when they were wanted to be packed, and he labored under the fixed belief that whenever Harris or George reached out their hands for anything, it was his cold, damp nose that they wanted. So he put his legs into the jam and he worried, means he disturbed the teaspoons, and he pretended, means to behave as if something is true when you know that is not, that the lemons were reds, and got into the hamper and killed three of them before Harris could land him, means hit him with the frying pan. See, what over the dog sat on the things that was packed to be packed, and he thought that when George and Harris reached out for the things to be packed, they were reaching out what for his cold wet nose and would bring it forward for them. So he stepped into a jam bottle and he shook the teaspoon. So he acted as that if the lemons were reds, and he stepped into the hamper to kill these rats. So he was stopped by Harris, who would hit him with a frying pan. See, Harris said, I encouraged him. I didn't encourage him. A dog like that doesn't want any encouragement. It's a natural original scene that is born in him and that makes him do the things like that. See what happened over here. See, three of them before Harris could land him with a frying pan. See, did that the end what he was stopped by Harris, who put him where he hit him with a frying pan. And then what the Harris, he blamed the writer for encouraging dog for doing all these mischievous things. And the writer says that the dog, like Montmorency's, he did not need encouragement. It was born to be like that, and he act like that only. The packing was done at 12:50, and Harris sat on a big hamper and said he hoped nothing would be found broken. So George said that if anything was broken, it was broken, which reflection means thought seemed to be comfortable to him. And he said that he was ready for bed. We were all ready for bed. Harris was to sleep with us that night, and we went upstairs. See, at around 12:50, they had packed the hampers. They have done with their things. So Harris sat on it and he said that hopefully nothing would break in it now. So George was indifferent, and what he said that if something break, it would not matter, as they were ready for bed and they went upstairs to sleep. We tossed for beds, and Harris had to sleep with me. He said, do you prefer the inside or the outside, Jay? I asked. I generally prefer to sleep inside a bed. Harris said, it was odd. George said, what time shall I wake you fellows? Harris said 7. I said no, 6, because I want to write some letters. See, as they settled in their beds, so Harris asked Germany, means if they preferred that the writer to say to be inside or outside of the bed. So writer said that he preferred to sleep on the inside of the bed, and what this seems strange to the Harris. So George asked them that what time should I wake them up. So Harris replied 7, while what the writer said no, wanted to wake up at 6 o'clock. Why? Because he had to write some letters. Harris and I had a bit of a row over it, but at last split the difference and said 6:30. Wake us at 6:30, George, we said. See, a bit of romance and argument arose, and a split the difference means this means that they agreed on 6:30 because it was halfway between 6 and 7. See, Harris and the writer, they had a discussion on that time, and finally they settled on 6:30, and each accommodating his time by half an hour. George made no answer, and we found on going over that he had been asleep for some time. So we placed the bath where he could tumble into it on getting out in the morning and went to bed ourselves. See what the George did not respond as he was asleep, and so Harris and George made mischief by placing the bathtub next to George's bed, so that he would fall into out as he woke up at the what it would protect that this way he would take a bath as soon as he got up. I hope you all have understood this chapter. Thank you.